Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm watching Pliny Explains It All, the Historia Naturalis Abridged books 1 to 2 by Salmonella Academy. It's Christmas Day, I just woke up, saw Salmonella uploaded, so I'm watching it immediately. Link to the original video will be down in the description below.
Hey persons of age. So, long before the era of the wiki, there used to be these things called encyclopedias, where for a small fee of thousands of dollars, they would mail you a tiny fraction of the knowledge we have access to today, and you could put it on a shelf, and it would sit there and make you look learned. But while not reading an encyclopedia is easy, not creating one is much easier, and yet we do it. Encyclopedia Britannica is still in circulation today, and it's maintained by around 100 full-time editors and more than 4,000 contributors. So whose idea was this? Who was the first person to sit down and say, today I feel like writing down everything? To answer that, we must look
Probably
nearly
some Greeks
2,000
or
years in
Romans.
the past, to the mid-70s AD. Pliny the Elder. Author, philosopher, veteran, imperial administrator, and one curious buckaroo. Early in his life, Pliny's father took him to Rome to study law. Then, as a young adult, he spent several years as a junior officer in the Roman military. His interest in literature made him a few high-ranking friends there, and when he came home, he took to writing. Unfortunately, a certain apocryphal fiddler was in charge at the time, who wasn't exactly kind to intellectuals. So Pliny kept it on the DL, mostly writing about things like grammar and rhetoric, which at the time few people found worth freaking out over. Fortunately, in June of 68, Nero finally took a hint and killed himself, and following the chaos of the Year of the Four Emperors, one Vespasian came out on top. Vespasian was a general. Fortunately, in June of 68, Nero finally took a hint and killed himself, and following the chaos of the Year of the Four Emperors, one Vespasian came out on top. Vespasian was a general, and a friend of Pliny's, so when he became emperor, he promoted Pliny to procurator, which was like the governor of a province. Suddenly, with this guy on the throne and a cushy job to pay the bills, Pliny found himself in a position to make complete use of his own potential. By day, he continued his administrative duties, but during nights, he wrote. And over the course of a few years, with nothing but his own wits and whatever authors he could get his hands on, he created a work known as the Historia Naturalis. This consisted of 37 books, each broken up into many dozens of... 37!
And this is just books 1 to 2, and it's a 24-minute video. I think this is the longest video he's ever posted. And these are just the first 2 books out of 37. Is he gonna cover the rest? Because, that's gonna be at least 20 hours of content.
Chapters covering just about every topic there is. While it wasn't quite an encyclopedia in the modern sense, it's still the earliest surviving attempt at an all-encompassing scholarly work, and it is a trip. I've been reading it. It is fascinating, not only as a reflection of what people did and did not know in the Roman Empire, but also as a reflection of Pliny himself, who is a character and who made zero attempt to hide it. So today I come to you with a brief summary of the first part of a brief summary of all human knowledge according to one dude circa 77 AD. Now the original thing makes for a fairly long read. Even removing most of the more uninteresting details, I've only managed to fit the first 2 books into today's video. As for the other 35, we'll see. I'm gonna let Pliny do the narration himself using my voice. He gets a lot of things shockingly right and a lot shockingly wrong. Rather than constantly chiming in with fact checks, I'm just gonna throw chess.com analysis icons in the corner for every claim he makes. I'll also provide relevant snippets of the actual text I'm paraphrasing just for reference. If you're one of the people who likes to pause the video just to see the funny ha-has I snuck into the freeze frame, rest assured there will be none today. You can just let it play. One last warning, while there is a loose overall structure to this thing, it also seems like Pliny just kind of wrote whatever was in his head for a given chapter. He has a habit of jumping back and forth between completely disparate topics and going on weird personal tangents in between. I am presenting this thing in the exact order it's written, so if it at any point seems utterly scatterbrained, it's his fault, not mine. Anyway, take it away. Yo.
So that's it? That's the first book, just dedication? Okay.
Right, let me get right ahead of things. These books are strictly about this world and the things we can see around it. If you're one of those madmen who think there are other worlds beyond this one, give it a rest, alright? That's psychotic. You can't know these things, and you can't grasp infinity. Stop trying, you'll hurt yourself. That's true, you can't know that. So the heavens are a perfect sphere, and they spin around us perfectly. It takes 24 hours for them to do one spin, which is actually really fast because the universe is huge. In fact, massive objects all whooshing around us this fast should be incredibly loud at all times. Why isn't this the case? The whole shebang is composed of 4 elements, right, which sort themselves by weight. Earth is heaviest, so it falls to the middle of everything, into a sphere, and it stays still. It's the only still thing. On top top of that is water,
It's gravity,
then air,
but
and
okay,
fire's
yeah,
the
gravity
lightest, which
wasn't
is why the sun and stars are
known
made of
back
it.
then.
The sun kicks ass, easily the best of the 7 things up there. Basically a god. Not literally. Don't try to answer questions about God's nature, by the way. You'll just confuse yourself. There's at most one God, and he's everything, and he doesn't do weird human shit like getting jealous or banging other gods. I swear, people just make up new gods.
Hey, you know what? This guy's making a lot of sense right now. So far, this is pretty damn good.
Every time they want something specific. Let me tell you, there was a temple on Palatine Hill dedicated, through my tax dollars by the way, to fever. Like, the illness. You understand that's bad shit, right? Things like that are why we've got more gods than people at this point. Folks in other countries worship animals and obscene things like stinking meats. There are gods of theft and other crimes. It's all folly. You want to be godly? Just help others. That's the way of the old Roman nobles, and that's the way of the noblest noble of all, Emperor Vespasian Augustus, who may or may not be my best buddy. But anyway, if there is a god, he doesn't care about what you do. People put crazy emphasis on the religion, avoiding foods, worrying themselves sick about all kinds of sacred rules. Look, I hang around the Capitol. There's a lot of rat bastards in politics, real scumbags, and they are thriving. You don't need to torture yourself. Have a bacon. Nobody gives a shit. Back to the stars, which by the way also don't give a shit about you specifically. For big history-changing stuff, yeah, they'll act up, but you, reader, do not need to worry. Anyway, most of them are fixed in a sphere really high up there. We'll call this the heavens. Between the heavens and the earth, there are 7 other bodies to talk about. Highest up there, we got Saturn, then there's Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. The heavens spin to the right, all these guys spin to the left.
Well,
Saturn is cold, Mars is hot.
It was a good
Jupiter,
amount.
Jupiter's just
It's not all of
right.
it, but
the sun's orbit
it's
is made
decent.
up of 360 degrees, 1 degree per day, except not quite. We have to add 5 1/4 days or else our sundials break. Down to Venus and Mercury, these guys are weird because
Okay, so he thought the sun orbited the Earth. Okay, so that's the first major thing he got wrong.
they like to hang around the sun. Fun fact, Venus is actually bright enough to help out the sun and moon sometimes. When it's helping the sun, we call it Lucifer, the light bringer. And when it's helping the moon, we call it Vesper, the sleepy time guy. Mercury tries to do the same thing, but he's much more lame and cringe, so he can't. The moon's got phases, as you know, and she gets closer and farther away at different times. And Daimion figured out lots of cool info about the moon's orbit, and you assholes bullied him for it. Yeah. This man unraveled the secrets of the universe, and in return, everyone goes, oh ho ho, he's in love with the moon. That's because humans are sick in the head. They'd rather read stories about bloodshed and massacres like that matters more than the fabric of reality. Get a clue. Anyway, the moon has phases because of the way it borrows light from the sun.
Reading stories about ancient battles is far more interesting than space, for most people. I like both personally.
Which might be what these other guys do too, we don't know yet. All those spots on it are actually puddles because it likes to draw up moisture from the earth, which is where we get the tides. And every now and then it casts its shadow on earth. We call these eclipses and they are freaking wicked. Eclipses can happen the
I mean, he was right about the tides at least.
other way around too, and the way these happen prove that the moon is bigger than the earth and the sun's way bigger than both of them. Oh, and just so we're clear, eclipses
Sun's way bigger than both, true. Moon is not bigger than Earth.
are a natural
He was
thing.
half right.
It's not the apocalypse or God's wrath. They follow rules. Even the Greeks could predict them. Settle down. Back to the planets. They're all kind of in the same belt up there. And they all get farther and closer to us at different points because their orbits are complicated. They mostly follow the same rules as each other, but there's some goofiness. Like the ones further than the sun move the slowest when they're the farthest away from us, but the closer ones move the quickest.
So this is kind
we
of
can chalk this
wrong,
up to the
but
sun
whatever.
emitting vapors that must push them around in weird ways. Thunderbolts come from Jupiter, and we don't know why. One theory is that it's because Saturn is very moist and Mars is very fiery, and when they meet in the middle, we get celestial fire thrown down at us. Same reason a wet log crackles and throws off embers in a fire.
Yeah, the analysis
There is a
makes
type of
sense.
star
This
that
one was
moves
completely
around
wrong.
and vanishes. We call these comets, and they come in all kinds of flavors. These might actually be omens. I mean, there have been some weird coincidences. Some people think comets are permanent, and we only see them when they swing by the right way, while others say they're just flare-ups of celestial vapor that dissipate on their own. Now to talk about some real anomalies, things we've only rarely seen. The sun goes dim sometimes, like when Caesar got killed. Matter of fact, during the Civil War with Mark Antony, it stayed dim for like a year. Multiple suns have been seen at the same time on several occasions, but no more than 3.
No.
3's the record.
No,
Same
they're
with
not.
moons. One time, a burning shield darted across the sky, throwing sparks as it went. Another time, someone saw a shooting star
Sounds
fly
like a
towards
UFO.
us until it was as big as the moon, and then it turned around and went back to being a normal comet. Side note, even the translator was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Finally, Finally, there are the stars Castor and Pollux. If you see both of them, it's good luck, but be advised, if one's alone, he turns into a little bastard. He can and will come down and set your boat on fire. That's the celestial sphere taken care of. Now let's move down a peg to the air. The air ends way before the moon, and it mixes with water vapor to create the weather. The sun dries up water on the earth, it goes up and turns into clouds, and then it's pushed back down again by the star forces that keep stuff on earth. We get rain and hail and such, and it keeps going round and round like some kind of water cycle. The seasons go around once a year, and we don't know exactly why, but it definitely has to do with the motion of the stars. Like some are wet or dry, hot or cold, and that influences the climate when they move. Especially Saturn, he always soaks the place going by. He's a freak, like actually. Oh, I almost forgot the dog star. This guy's nuts. It kindles the sun's vapors, and when it rises, the ocean gets upset, wine ferments, and stagnant waters are set in motion. And there's a creature called the oryx in Egypt, and when the dog star goes up, they look at it and they sneeze out of worship. It also makes dogs go rabid, hence the name. But the stars and the seasons they create have profound effects on nature, and it's not just the weather changes that do it. Some flora and fauna have weird links to the heavens. Pelagium blooms right on the winter solstice, even when hung up to dry in the house. And heliotrope follows the sun, even when it's cloudy. The moon makes oysters bigger and ants lazier, and diseases in the eyes of livestock will grow and diminish based on its phase. That's just a few examples. Hey, let's talk about the winds. The ancient Greeks have published a lot of great observations about the winds. Those were warish, disconnected times, which makes their work all the more impressive. Nowadays, in this great peace, every shore of this sea welcomes Romans. And what are we doing? When's the last time we sent anybody out to investigate this world with inquiry in their heart? Plenty of expeditions, sure, but that's just
welcomes the Romans. Welcomes. You sure about that? Because there was a lot of rebellions constantly in Rome. Well, in the whole Roman Empire. In every corner of it. All the time.
just because you got some shit to sell. Rather than pursue science that could benefit all of mankind, you're hawking olives in Byzantium just to watch your abacus go up. Greed. But anyway, how many winds are there? The ancients recognized 4, but that's clearly not enough. The next generation overcorrected, brought it up to 12, and shit got messy, inelegant. So today, us modern folk take the middle of the road with a nice even 8 total. 2 for each quarter of the heavens, and they've got a bunch of fun names. And yeah, if we wanted to add in the old reject winds, we could. And there's even a couple extra secret winds only recognized by a select few. Plus, there's certain winds that only blow in certain regions of the world, but, you know, broad strokes, it'll do you fine. These winds each blow at their various allotted times of the year, and the winter ones make for particularly rough seas. In former times, pirates were compelled, by the fear of death, to rush into death and to brave the winter ocean. Now we are driven to it by avarice. Direction isn't the only difference between the winds, though. They can all be characterized by their temperature, their moisture, and the kind of weather they tend to bring. Volturnus is dry, Septentria brings snow and hail, Auster is sultry, Aquilo is the most healthy. Real motley crew, those winds. Well, while those guys are generally pretty calm, we must also consider the sudden, violent gusts we call storms. Storms are self-contained events that come in a few flavors themselves, like Eknephius, which brings thunder and lightning, or Typhon, which doesn't. Certain storms also give rise to whirlwinds, which are these giant, loud pillars of wind and moisture that destroy everything in their path. They are so dense that they can actually support themselves on the ground, and if they happen over the sea, they suck up the water as they go. Thunderstorms produce lightning, and lightning is crazy. It has this unique property where it can damage things on the inside while leaving the outside unharmed. It can empty casks of their wine without breaking the vessel itself, and it can melt gold and silver without burning the bag they're in. One time, a noblewoman named Marcia was struck by lightning while pregnant, and while the baby got fried, she herself survived without injury. Many people believe that when lightning...
What? Okay, this guy is definitely wrong about a lot of things, but he's also correct about a lot more. And this is 77 AD, this is 2,000 years ago. The amount of stuff they were correct about even back then, pretty fucking impressive.
Lightning strikes a man, it can be used to predict his future, with terms and conditions, of course. Some historians also state that man is capable of invoking lightning. The author El Piso said that the ancient king Numa did it all the time. Then his successor, Tullus Hostilius, tried to imitate him, but he didn't do the ceremonies right, so he just got electrocuted. Is any of this true? Maybe. At the very least, I buy the fortune-telling thing. Now, we all know that we see lightning before we hear thunder. That's nothing special. It's just because light has a greater velocity than sound. It's the same event. Thunder's is just the sound that lightning
That's
makes.
correct.
Fun fact, man is the only animal that isn't always killed by lightning. Any other creature, instant death every time, but we're special.
I don't
Lightning
know
can
about
strike
that
just
one.
about anything, except for laurels, seals, and eagles. They're all safe. It also never descends more than
Why
5
them?
feet into the ground, so if you're someone who's scared of lightning, your best bets are deep caves or a tent made out of seal skin. Besides all this normal weather, we do have records of some real weird stuff falling from the sky. It has rained milk and blood on many occasions. One time it rained flesh, and the fallen meat that wasn't eaten by birds just didn't rot. You know, your casual immortal meat storm. One time it rained wool, another time there was a shower of baked tiles. What a country, huh? Stones have been known to fall from the sky now and then. The Greeks like to brag about how the
Meteorites?
philosopher Anaxagoras correctly predicted such an event,
Or
but I find
meteors?
that dubious.
No,
We
don't
know
know which
a
one-
stone
don't know which
fell.
one it was.
Like a wagon load big, but I think Anaxagoras just got lucky. I mean, the guy said it would fall out of the sun. What are you on about? The sun can't do a rock. It doesn't have rocks. Finally, rainbows are nothing special. We get them all the time. They don't predict the weather or anything else. They're just something that happens. Rays of sunlight hit a hollow
That's
cloud
true.
and they get refracted. And the colors are due to a mixture of clouds, air, and fire. Let's come down from the air onto the earth. Good old Mother Earth. The other 3 elements are bastards. You never know when they're going to turn on you. Fire burns us, water pelts us as hail,
Yeah,
and
that's
floods our
true.
villages, air rages in squalls, but Earth?
Well, the earth can quake, there can be a landslide, although I guess landslides are also triggered by water, not just necessarily the earth itself. But hey, earthquakes. The earth is not that great.
She's just hanging out. And what a bounty she has for us, giving us crops, flowers, medicinal plants. In her compassion, she even gave us poison, so when life sucks, we can kill ourselves quickly. And what does man do? Naturally, we take advantage
Or
of her
poison our
kindness.
leaders.
We torture her for all the iron, timber, and stone she can bear, and then we use that iron to tear out her entrails in search of gems to put on our fingers. Do you know how many hands have to be worked to the bone just to decorate one joint of another? Honestly, if hell existed, all this greedy digging would get us there. But, of course, whatever we take from her, we all pay back in blood and bones eventually. World keeps
Exactly.
turning. Just wish y'all weren't such ingrates about it. Anyway, as we said, the Earth is a perfect sphere, except for, mountains
No,
and
it
valleys,
isn't.
but close enough. There's a question we get all the Earth is a perfect sphere, except for, mountains and valleys, but close enough. There's a question
It's
we
not
get all the
perfect.
time when people first learn about this, particularly from the commoners. They'll go, right, if Earth's a ball, why don't people on the other side fall off? To that I say, why doesn't the whole thing fall down? Where would it go if it did? Up into the other sky? That doesn't make sense. No, the Earth is right where it belongs. Then they'll
This
say,
guy's
alright,
making a
fine,
little
but why's the
sense.
ocean flat then? Guess what? It's not. Here, take a glass of water, fill it to the brim, then drop a little something in there. See that slight, subtle curve? That's the ocean. You can see it when a ship goes out to sea. The bottom bit will disappear over the horizon before the mast does, and so it goes all the way around. One time, some Indians got blown off course by a storm and ended up in Germany. Side note, this was not the first nor the last time the translator started his annotation with this exact 11-syllable sigh of frustration. The ocean they must have crossed had to be massive. With this exact. Real quick, let's
Must
think
be
about how much
incorrect.
of the world is even inhabitable. We got one hemisphere over here, which is divided into 5 zones, right? On the top and bottom, miserable, nothing but cold and darkness. In the middle, sun's too close, burns everything, miserable. So already we only got a fifth of the place to ourselves. Then take into account all the seas and mountains and wilderness and other crap in the way, there's barely anything left. And this is what every war in history has been over, this tiny portion of what amounts to a speck in the universe. Even if you conquered the world, you'd have barely started. And how much of it can you bring with you to the grave, huh? So the Earth is in the middle of the universe, and we know this because of the equinoxes. Day and night, perfectly balanced on these 2 dates. We're right in the middle. It just makes sense. There's plenty of other proof that we live on a globe. Certain stars can only be seen from different parts of the
Exactly
world, and that's
true.
because the Earth's in the way. Just ask a sailor, they'll see new stars squink
At
their
least
way
they
out
knew
of
the
the
Earth was a
horizon
globe,
as they go.
and not
Also,
flat.
eclipses show that the time of day depends on your east-west position. A few years back, the same eclipse of the sun, the same exact event, was seen at 8 in Campania, but at noon in Armenia. Try explaining that one, planists. Here's another. One time, a courier named Philonides ran from Sicyon to Elis, which is a distance of 1,200 stadia. The way there took him 9 hours, but then the
120
return trip
miles.
took him 15. And it's not because he was tired or took a break somewhere. Brother, he ran against the sun. Likewise, the length of shadows on a given day depends on your latitude. In Egypt, on the summer solstice
also
at
true.
noon, their sundials cast a shadow half the length of the pointy bit, whereas in Venice, at the very same hour, the shadow's as long as the pointy bit. If you keep going south, eventually you'll reach a point point where the sun's straight up at the solstice. We dug a well in a town called Syene just to check, and sure enough, it's light all the way down. If you go even further south, you'll notice the sun do that twice a year at equal distances from the solstice. There's also a place in India where there just aren't shadows, ever, and as a consequence, the people there don't know what hours are. But because of the way the sun moves, you'll notice that the longest day of the year is longer the further north you go. In Alexandria on the summer solstice, they get 14 hours of daylight. In Italy, it's 15, and in Britain, it's 17. Following this pattern, we believe that at the very North Pole, it's 24, meaning they get 6 months of daylight at a time, with 6 months of night on the other side. The difference in climate based on latitude is clearly reflected in the nations that live there. For one, the Ethiopians. Let's talk about earthquakes. The Babylon, for one.
Hold on. I trust the most your abilities to historically contextualize these things, but also trust some of you to choose not to for the meme.
Let's talk about earthquakes. The Babylonians used to blame these on the movements of the stars. One guy is even said to have predicted an earthquake through astrological means. Is that true? I'll let you be the judge. I, for one, believe that earthquakes are caused by the winds. Think about it. Before an earthquake, it's always very calm. The seas are tranquil. There's not a single bird in the sky. Why? No wind. They can't fly. Where'd the wind go? Underground. It gets stuck down there and it builds up until finally hell literally breaks loose. It starts off with a horrible noise like cows mooing or people fighting in the distance. Then everything shakes hard. Whole city walls get knocked down and sometimes the earth opens up and swallows them entirely. The shaking's even noticed by people on ships who get hit by waves without...
Yeah, another reason why Earth is not that great. Earth can just say, screw you, open up, swallows you whole, and there you go. Now you're gone.
Any wind. Earthquakes also make well water turn cloudy and smelly. So the obvious question is, what the hell can we do about it? Well, places with a lot of natural caverns or man-made sewers tend to get fewer earthquakes. That's because the underground air has an easy way to escape. Buildings that are arched or that lean against each other also tend to fare better in the event of an earthquake. Barring all else, at least...
I mean, okay, these people couldn't have known about tectonic plates and the movements. They couldn't have, so I guess this is fine.
These things are usually over with quickly, although some earthquakes have been known to last days, months, even 1 or 2 years straight. As for related anomalies, about a century and a half ago, 2 mountains slammed together and collapsed, and fire and smoke came from the ground where they stood. More recently, under Nero, there was a knight named Vectius Marcellus, who woke up to find that his fields and olive grounds swapped places with each other. No mayhem or destruction, just, oh, this is over here now, okay? But just as Earth swallows up land in one place, she spits it back out elsewhere. As such, islands sometimes rise up spontaneously out of open sea. We have tons of records of these events across the Mediterranean. They're often accompanied by a giant fiery explosion and loads of dead fish floating everywhere. It's said that one time some people ate these fish and then they too immediately died. But enough of tragedies. Let's turn back to the wonders of the earth, such as there are many caverns filled with gas that instantly kills things. Some kill only birds, others kill everything but people, and still more kill everything and people. In a few caves, those who breathe the gas instead become intoxicated and start predicting the future, as is the case with the famous oracle at Delphi. We can ascribe these effects to the divine power of nature. I mean, what else could it be? How the hell do you explain that rationally? But while most islands are attached to the earth at the bottom, there are a few that float. The Calaminae Islands are not only moved by the wind, but the people on them can actually push them around with long poles to go wherever they want. There's another group of floating islands known as the Dancers, so called because they move to the beat of drums played on their surface. I've got a few more miscellaneous wonders here. Let me just rattle them off. In Harpassa, there's a giant rock that can be moved by one finger, but not by the force of the whole body. In Paracini, there's a type of dirt that heals all wounds. In Troas, there's a stone that makes dead bodies dissolve. Near the Indus River, there's 2 mountains, one of which attracts iron and the other repels it. So if you had iron nails in your shoes, you couldn't step on the one or off the other. In Argyripa, the grania plant doesn't grow, and in Crustuminium, the hay springs up already rotten. Let's turn now to the tides. We know these are caused by the moon, and to a lesser degree the sun. Moon overhead, they go up, moon on the other side, they go down. A large open ocean is needed to manifest this power of the planet, which is why neither lakes nor rivers have tides. In Britain, the tide rises 120 feet. The tides do a full cycle twice a day, except in Euboea, where they do it 7 times. Aristotle said that animals only die when the tide is ebbing, but really that's only true of people. Watch. Seawater is salty, and that's because the sun evaporates all the mild, sweet water while leaving all the gross crap that ends up in the ocean behind. A number of estimates have been made for the depth of the ocean, ranging from 15 stadia to who the hell knows. Seawater is also heavier than fresh...
Pretty damn accurate. The deepest point? Who the hell knows? I mean, the deepest point we've reached is 11 kilometers, but there could be deeper ones. We don't know yet. So who the hell knows?
Which is why things float better on it. As with everything in nature, bodies of water have no shortage of weird stuff they get down to. Some rivers actually run underground before bursting out again elsewhere. We know they're the same river because if you chuck stuff in one, it comes out the other side. There's a lake in Judea where nothing sinks at all. In Dodona, there's a spring called the Fountain of Jupiter, and though the water there is cold as ice, it'll relight extinguished torches held near its surface. There's a lake in Judea where nothing sinks.
Oh, this is an old name for the Dead Sea. Well, I'm pretty sure if you chuck a massive heavy rock in there, it would sink, even though it is the Dead Sea.
At all. In Dodona, there's a spring called the Fountain of Jupiter, and though the water there is cold as ice, it'll relight extinguished torches held near its surface. The river Melas turns sheep black when they drink from it, while the Cephasus makes them turn white, the Peneus turns them black again, and then the Xanthus makes them red. The river Astaces makes the horses there produce black milk, which the people use for food. There's a spring
Wait. Horses produce milk?
Makes the horses there
There's a lot of things
black
wrong
milk,
with this
which
one.
the people use for food. There's a spring in the island of Andros that tastes like wine. The river Lyncestis tastes sour but gets you drunk like wine. And in Arcadia, there's a river called the Styx that kills you instantly. In Labrosis, there are 3 springs, all of which also kill you instantly, but in a much less painful fashion than the Styx. That's enough of those. From here we turn at last to the 4th element, fire. In Samosata, along the Euphrates, there's a big pool of this flammable mud they call maltha. It sticks to everything it touches, and if you set it on fire, even water won't extinguish it. Romans invaded these lands long ago, and the people there poured the stuff on our soldiers, cooked them in their armor like a crab. There are certain places in the world where fire is always burning. The summits of many mountains are home to such flames, as are the occasional crater and field. And of course,
Summits of many mountains. I'm guessing volcanoes?
of course, the sun and stars are no exception. What a weird thing these are. Like, fire needs fuel to spread and sustain itself. So what is it that can feed these flames without destroying itself in the process? There's a thinker for ye. But besides these guys, where else does fire come from? You got fires lit by men, for one. Certain stones have fire in them innately. There's the fire you get from rubbing sticks together, and there's the fire in clouds that causes lightning. You can also use concave mirrors to focus sunlight into fire. Highly potent, do be careful. Sudden fires also manifest occasionally in the human body. One time, when 6th king of Rome, Servius Tullius, was a child, he was just sleeping there when suddenly flames shot out of his freaking head. I've got more fun facts like this to drop later, but it's about time we wrap this book up. And what better way than by sizing up the entire globe? So I ran some numbers, added some distances, checked some other people's answers. I've got some estimates here on the width of the inhabited world, from the mouth of the Ganges in India to the port city of Gades in the west. These all fall around 9,000 miles, give or take 1,000. But like I said before, the uninhabited Earth extends far beyond that. Eratosthenes was a really bright dude, and he put the circumference at 31,500 miles. What a big, wild world it is.
Hey, he was off. That's not correct. Yeah, it says the actual one here. It's almost 25,000. But he wasn't that far off. It's only like 6,600.
Just how wild? You'll have to tune in next time for books 3 through 6, all of which are titled An Account of Countries, Nations, Seas, Towns, Havens, Mountains, Rivers, Distances, and Peoples who now exist or formerly existed. But for now, I'm Pliny the Elder, et gratias ago tibi, qui expectandi. The Pope's sitting at home fuming at my pronunciation right there.
This was an awesome video. A great Christmas present. I just spent 24 minutes watching a video about what one guy in Rome 2,000 years ago used to believe. And while there was definitely a lot of things that were just completely wrong, there was also way more that was just correct, which is surprising for someone from 2,000 years ago. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing and giving a like. If you're interested, why not watch this video right here? And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next video.